Okay, good evening to all of you from Toronto, Canada. So we are going to begin our bi-weekly discussion with the presence of honorable monks and also with some presence of our lay people on Zoom platform. So let us begin our discussion by paying respect and homage to the Buddha. So please let us recite Nam Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Okay, so for past 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks, we could not have our bi-weekly discussion is because of the continuous ceremonies that all the monks and nuns were occupied with. So we have to postpone previous discussion to today. And officially, today is the full moon day, actually. So happy full moon day to everyone. And so the continuous ceremony has officially ended with this full moon day. So today, we are with the most venerable Bikkhu Bodhi. We all know who he is, and also our audience knows who Bhante Bodhi is. And just this afternoon, I sent him an email. I said, Bhante, would you be free to join our discussion? Around 4:30, he replied, yes, he is skipping the daily chanting to join this discussion. And so immediately I made a social media post that Bikkhu Bodhi is coming. So please join, send WhatsApp messages to all the venerables and emails. So we have venerable monks from different cities to have this discussion with the most venerable Bikkhu Bodhi. And Bhante Bodhi, I have to congratulate you for having an amazing virtual conference last week, creating a compassionate world. There were close to 200 people. There were amazing presentations through your Buddhist Global Buddhist Relief Organization. You're making a huge difference in people's life, and you're truly an inspiration and motivation to all of us. And we are wishing you nothing but, Bhante, all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha for your long life and health and safety. So that
thank you, but I have to confess that I'm not the one who does most of the work with Buddhist Global Relief. I'm more or less sit in the background, but other people do. The lay people do most of the work. A very good team of people who do a lot of hard work.
You're the leader and founder.
I'm the lazy monk who can sit there like a Buddha statue and not really do anything. Other people make offerings and chant and do meditation, and the Buddha statue just sits there not doing anything. So I'm in that position.
I love it. I think we all are
maybe,
like that.
Maybe it is Sinhala lazy. Not English.
Okay, so welcome, Bhante, to our bi-weekly discussion. And also today we have the presence of Venerable Sanata Vihari from North Hollywood. And we have Venerable Saranapala Thero joining us from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And we have Venerable Digale Somavangsha joining us from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Then we have Venerable Pesala Thero joining us from Sri Lanka. It's very early morning in Sri Lanka. Now it's 4:30, I guess. So thank you so much for joining this discussion with great interest in the Dhamma. Then we have Venerable Trudeau joining us from Florida, USA. Then we have Venerable Jinananda joining us from Ottawa, but he's at the moment, he's in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. He's joining the discussion after doing a program there. And then we have Bhante Kamalasiri joining us from Minnesota, United States. Then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana joining us from Los Angeles. And then we have Venerable, the present Venerable Bhante C again from, I think Bhante from Wisconsin. We have the Venerable Bikkhu Nalaka joining us from California. Then we have Venerable Sumedha joining us from Ottawa, Canada. And then we have Venerable Bhante Nanda joining us from Edmonton. So a warm welcome to all the Venerable monks. And of course, there were other monks and nuns who were going to join this discussion, but some monks and nuns are on a Dhamma tour in Italy, in Europe. So it's midnight for them, but they regret for not being able to join the discussion. But they can watch this discussion later on. And I also would like to welcome our friends who are joining us on the Zoom platform, the lay people, and who are watching this program live on Facebook and YouTube Live. So it is a great joy to have the gathering of the monks and nuns from different cities, and also together with our lay devotees. So we are going to discuss a short discourse from the Anguttara Nikaya. It is known as the Sankita Sutta, and we have put the topic as the identifying and understanding the essence of Dhamma. Thanks to Venerable Suddhaso for bringing my attention to this sutta. And after reading it a couple of times, and of course, I found it very deep, very interesting, very timely for to have a discussion for positive and spiritual reinforcement for all the monks and the lay people. So I would like to invite Venerable Sanata Vihari to give a summary of the short discourse and what you think about the essence of Dhamma in terms of your life as a Western monk or Hollywood monk. Venerable Sanat Vihari.
Thank you, Bhante. Bandana to all the Bhantes. So the sutta that we're covering today is the Sankita Sutta, which is brief advice to Gautami. And I'm just going to give like a little brief breakdown of it, which is brief advice to Gautami. And I'm just going to give like a little brief breakdown of it.
Yes.
The Buddha starts off by telling Gautami that you might know these certain things, 8 things that are not the teaching, that are not the training, and that are not the teacher's instructions. 1, things leading to passion. 2, to being fettered. 3, to accumulation. 4, to more desires. 5, to lack of contentment. 6, to crowding. 7, to laziness. 8, to being burdensome. And then the Buddha says, you might know that certain things, these 8 things are the teaching, the training, and the teacher's instructions. 1, leading to dispassion. 2, to being unfettered. 3, to dispersal. 4, to fewer desires. 5, to contentment. 6, to seclusion. 7, to energy. And 8, to being unburdensome. And the thing that came to mind, the first thing was apaja, like going forth. I don't know, for some reason, when I was going through these factors, I thought about going forth and how the monk's life is supposed to be. A few duties and dispassion and letting go and few desires And it kind of reminded me sort of a little bit of like the Karaniya Metta Sutta, how these kind of things that we need to do before we meditate. So to me, what I really got from it, it just kind of really helped me check in where I'm at in my monk's life. It was a good way to reflect, to see what was the purpose of it. And as when it reminded me when we take the papaja, the upasampada, how we say that, you know, we're doing this for the purpose of nibbana, not for any other purpose, for fame or for desires. So this is like, these are the kind of ideas that I got. It just kind of really made me reflect on my monk's life so far and how I'm doing with all these things, and, you know, kind of falling short on all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Venerable Sanata Vihari. And I would like to, of course, there's if you like to make a contribution or sharing your insights, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will take your question. And so far, nobody has raised their hands. But I would like to go to Bhante Bodhi. What do you think of this short discourse, Bhante Bodhi? You have to unmute yourself, Bhante.
I would say that provides one perspective on what you would call the essence of the Dhamma. It was interesting. I just did a quick search. I found that there's another sutta also in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Sevens, addressed this time to the Venerable Upali, which also has a very similar character to the sutta that you brought up, given to Mahapajapati Gotami.
Yeah.
In this sutta, Upali comes to the Buddha and says, please, Bhante, give me some teaching, a brief teaching, so that I could withdraw and live heedful, ardent, and resolute. And then the Buddha says to Upali, those things which you might know thus, these things, these dhammas, do not lead to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, to peace, to abhinya, that's direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. You should definitely know that is not the Dhamma, that is not the discipline, that is not the teaching of the master, of the Buddha. But those things which you might know thus, these things lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. You should definitely recognize this is the Dhamma, this is the discipline, this is the teaching of the master. And then when we take at least a number of these expressions used here, peace, direct knowledge, enlightenment, nibbana, these are the terms that the Buddha uses in the first discourse, the Dhammacakka Sutta, when he is introducing the Noble Eightfold Path to the five ascetics, the first five disciples. Noble Eightfold Path to the five ascetics, the first five disciples. So he says that previously he was following, or he says that there are those two extremes that should not be followed by one who has gone forth from the world, the extreme of indulgence and sensual pleasure, and then the extreme of self-mortification, self-affliction. Then he says, avoiding these two extremes, the Tathagata has discovered the middle way, which leads to, then we have the series, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. And then he says, what is this middle way? It is just the Noble Eightfold Path. So you could say that from this sutta, we could infer that the essence of the Dhamma, what is the Dhamma, the discipline, the teaching of the teacher, are the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. So it'd be interesting to compare that sutta with the one given to Gotami, which in a way is a bit strong, I would say, as Venerable Sanata Vihari said, also myself, when I look at that sutta, the qualities that are upheld, I say, wow, I still have a long way to go to measure up to.
And I think, but we all have a long way to go according to this, these teachings. I mean, we all are trying our best. I think being the modern monks, now there are, the Buddha says to Venerable Gotama Prajapati Gotami, the Dhamma is not not for the crowd or but seclusion. Now, being monks and nuns in the Western world, I think even living in the city, in the village, we all are, I think, stuck.
What would the Buddha say if he came across the urban Buddhist monk? But he was an urban monk himself. He lived, his main monasteries were in Sravasti and Rajagaha.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. But I think he became an urban monk after being a forest monk. Right? Yeah. All right. So thank you, Bhante. Of course, we have lots to discuss in the number points from this discourse. Venerable Shanta Sobhana, what are your thoughts on this?
In the presence of most venerable Bikkhu Bodhi and all other venerable monks, and I'm so grateful to have this opportunity today.
Yeah.
And actually, when I look at this sutra, it is one of the most beautiful sutra that we can apply to day-to-day life, this environment, because when it comes to that identifying and understanding the essence of the Dhamma, so by the time what happened today with this technology, the spectrum of the Buddha's teaching became more wider, and people start to interpret more different ways, and they start to open different windows to understand the teachings. So as a result of that, what happening, that the people bringing their own ideas as the Buddha's teaching. So when it comes to the very fundamental understanding of the Buddha's teaching, as we all know, it's the recognition of fundamental nature of the world. But what we see today, it's mostly, rather than developing the dispassion and contentment and detachment, so like that, it's mostly we start to go towards kind of like attachment, and we start to develop the passion out and through the Dhamma. And it's a very, sometimes we have to be very careful, because when it comes to the world, this conventional life, the mostly governed by the greed, hatred, and illusion, the war, and more than any other things, the spirituality become one of the most powerful tool to ignite the hatred. So in that way, that it is very clearly that mentioned here, that when it comes to the Dhamma, how we can recognize what is the Buddha's teaching. As we know, it's a very famous book, What the Buddha Taught. And at the same time now, because of this personal development and this material desires, and there are a lot of the ideas come toward with the Buddha's picture, and with the social medias, people share many ideas, thinking whatever that positive, whatever happiness and the satisfaction in the conventional life, and sometimes people explain it as the Buddha's teaching. Of course, when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, there are many teachings out of the Mangala Sutta, the Parabhava Sutta, and the Karaniya Sutta, in from birth to death, and how we can develop a very profitable life. But what we need to understand, that when it comes to the essence of Dhamma, sometimes in this conventional life, we can't see the very end result. So most of the time we go with the happiness and satisfaction, but if we can't see the end result, sometimes our own happiness and satisfaction going to bring us the unhappiness. So this is a very important that as a practitioners that to understand ourselves. And when it comes to Dhamma, because without listening to others, we can't develop the wisdom. When it comes to the path of the wisdom, the basic and the foundation is the Srutame Jnana. So we have the wisdom, the basic and the foundation is the Srutame Jnana. So we have to open our mind to listen. But at the same time, when we listen, we have to be very careful and the information we get. And sometimes we have to have a filter ourselves to get the best out of what we listen. So I think this sutta will give us a very clear filter for ourselves to develop that when we have the Srutama Jnana, when we open to the outside world, how we can get the best of that listening.
Mhm.
So it is very important because when it comes to today, and people talk about the Dhamma, people talk about the liberation, and as all of you know, the Nibbana is one of the beautiful marketing word today. That a lot of nightclubs use the word Nibbana. There's a lot of people, drug products use the word liberation, and sometimes the word liberation. And sometimes people misunderstand what is the true liberation or what is the true nirvana. So then I think this sutta gives us a very good the measurements, how we can go with the understanding and how when we open to outside world and how we can filter that whatever the wisdom we gain. Because now as everybody knows nowadays a lot of people more than go to temples and go to monks and they use the YouTube and from morning to night sometimes they use the YouTube and listening to many Dhamma talks. And maybe the same concept and many monks talk about in different ways. And then if the listener doesn't have some kind of basic understanding, they get confused. And so this is a very good measurement, and anyone, anywhere, anytime, they can use this measurement and whatever they listen, and if they can filter out of these measurements, and they can get into the essence of Dharma.
Yeah. And I think this is also good for kind of self-reflection. Maybe this is the mirror of the Dhamma. Like where we are standing on in the practice of Dhamma in our personal life, right?
That's
so
right.
Yes. I think this is something to contemplate deeply. So, Venerable Jinananda, you raised your hand. What are your thoughts on this sutta?
Thank you, Bante, for organizing the Dhamma discussion again after the Kartina season. So I would like to share the merits. Out of many Kartinas, I participated with Bikkhu Bodhi and other venerable monks and nuns and lay people who participate in the discussion. Wish you all blessings to continue your Dhamma services. So the very reason I raised my hand because I cannot stay here longer. I have to move to another place, so that I thought I should say something with regard to the sutta. Yes, the sutta tells us some criteria to understand what the Dhamma and what not the Dhamma. That is very important for all of us, because the monks and lay people who participate in this discussion, either through contribution or listening, can understand what they need to do in terms of getting them into Sila, Samadhi and Panya, for sure. However, on the way to many Dhamma facts, as Bhante Sansoban mentioned, when a lot of views on Dharma come, it's very hard for some people to clear what the Buddha said exactly for dispassion, for cessation, and so forth. So I think this is where we can find this sutta is really important. You know some Dhamma, but you do not know what exactly you should go through with the Dhamma to get Samadhi and Panya. Many people have no questions about practicing Sila. I think they are pretty clear. and pretty attached to day-to-day practices. But a lot of monks and people, as far as come to some kind of confusion, how to develop samadhi, how to develop panya, particularly with some practices. So that Buddha's instruction like this is really important for us to understand the directions to higher teaching. So when the Buddha said to Gautami that if there is something that you do not lead to dispassion, cessation, seclusion, and decide that it is not Dhamma. So it is very clear. So I participate in continuous ceremonies in the last couple of weeks, having the similar idea in mind. Let me say these words in Pali: Viveka Nisritang, Viraga Nisritang, Nirodha Nisritang, Vosagga Parinam. These are 4 words I always keep in my mind, because it says that whatever you do, whatever you say, and whatever you think, kind of Viveka Nisritang should be achieved. Like you would be able to find a safe ground without the attack of hindrances, without the attack of any other unwholesomeness. So with that in mind, with that principle in mind, you do activities, but you find happiness and peace. So we need to understand what viraga, what nirodha, and what vosaka parinaming also, usually dispassion. So we tend to attach to many things we do, that is for sure. But if we have an open mind called yoniso manasikaro or satisampajani in effect, you can understand whether this is leading more or me to attachment or craving, so that kind of inquisitive mind is always there for you to protect your mind from dispassion. So instead of explaining Gautami in details what activity, what things you should do, the Buddha here explained the criteria of Dhamma to understand what Dhamma and what is not Dharma. So I think this kind of suttas should be associated time to time, just to clarify ourselves where we should go and what we need to do and so forth. So that's all I just wanted to say at the very beginning, and if I have time and space, I would definitely come again. Thank you for the opportunity, Bhante.
Thank you, Venerable Janananda, for sharing your thoughts. And I'm receiving a request from the audience, from the lay people, to maybe possible to read the discourse, short discourse. This is the Sankhita Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, and so here's the sutta. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Vesali at the Great Wood in the hall with the peak roof. The Mahaprajapati Gautami went up to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and said to him, Sir, may the Buddha please teach me Dhamma in brief. When I have heard it, I will live alone, withdrawn, diligent, keen, and resolute. Gautami, you might know that certain things lead to passion, not dispassion, to being fettered, not to being unfettered, to accumulation, not dispersal, to more desires, not fever, to lack of contentment, not contentment, to crowding, not seclusion, to laziness, not energy, to being burdensome, not being unburdensome. You should definitely bear in mind that these things are not, again I'm emphasizing, these things are not the teaching, not the training, and not the teacher's instructions. You might know that certain things lead to dispassion, not passion, to being unfettered, not to being fettered, to dispersal, not accumulation, to fewer desires, not more, to contentment, not lack of contentment, to seclusion, not crowding, to energy, not laziness, to being unburdensome, not being burdensome. You should definitely learn the training and the teacher's instructions. So this is the end of the discourse. So the 8 things, I see these are very interesting points. Dhamma is for dispassion, not for passion. Dhamma is for being unfettered, not for being fettered. Dhamma is for the dispersion, not for accumulation. Dhamma is for fewer desires, not for more. Dhamma is for contentment, not for lack of contentment. Dhamma is for seclusion, not for crowding. Dhamma is for energy, not for laziness. Dhamma is for unburdensome, not for being burdensome. I think these 8 teachings, Bhante Bodhi, how do we practice these teachings in modern time?
Yeah. One thing that struck me very interesting, just as you were reading that and I was looking at it, first I was puzzled by the sequence in which the items are listed here. I have to say that they don't quite, the sequence doesn't quite make sense to me.
Okay.
Because it begins with the items, the opening items point, let's say, to the ultimate goal. I think the first 3 point to the ultimate goal, to dispassion, to the ending of bondage or being fettered, and to dismantling rather than building up. So those are pointing directly, that almost synonyms for Nibbana.
Mm-hmm.
But then the ones that follow this are the factors that lead. Those are the factors that constitute the gradual sequential training. And so it would be interesting to compare this to another sutta in the Book of Eights. Let me see, I think the number might be 20. It's the 8 thoughts of the great man given to Anuruddha. So and you could see there that the sequence of the 8 thoughts of the great person is much more logical. So it begins with apicca sayang dhammo nayang dhammo mahichasa. It begins with fewness of desires rather than having many desires. Then the next one is being content. Then this Dhamma is for one who is fond of solitude, not for one who is fond of company. So here we have 4, 5, and 6 from the sutta to Gautami. Then the next one is this Dhamma is for one who arouses energy, not for one who is lazy. Again, that's factor number, sets up, not for one who lacks samadhi. Then this Dhamma is for one who has wisdom, not for one who is without wisdom. So there we get more explicitly the training in samadhi and wisdom, sati, samadhi, and panya. And then the last one is a little, of course, open to interpretation. Nipa pancha sayang dhammo nayang dhammo. Nipa pancha sayang dhammo nayang dhammo papancha ramasa. That this Dhamma, Nipa pancha rasa, Nipa pancha ramasayang dhammo, Nipa pancha ratino. Nayang dhammo papancha ramasa papancha ratino. This Dhamma is for one who delights in, it uses this term, nipapancha, non-proliferation, non-diversification, not for one who delights in proliferation or diversification. Yeah, so there, in that sequence, from the 8 thoughts of the great man, we could see the building up of sila, then samadhi, then panya, and probably nipapancha is pointing to liberation or nibbana. Whereas in the Gautami Sutta, it seems that the first 3 factors should be placed, that the more logical sequence would be to go to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then bring in 1, 2, and 3. So there you have the steps building up, the practices building up. And then with steps 1, 2, and 3, then you have the achievement of the attainment of the goal through dispassion, detachment, and dispersing the round of existence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is there any questions from the audience regarding the sutta or what Bhante Bodhi said? Now, Bhante Bodhi, I think maybe lay people are still maybe they are thinking about these terms like dispassion, passion, being fettered, unfettered, dispersal, accumulation, or maybe this viragaya, saragaya, visamyogaya, samyogaya, apachayaya, achayaya, apichataya, mahichataya, santitya, asantutya, pavikaya, sanganikaya, viryarambhaya, kosajaya, subharataya, dubbarataya. So these terms, maybe in English, people must be wondering as to what are these words, what are these practices, like dispassion and passion, or being unfettered and being fettered. Would you like to explain a bit, Bhante Bodhi, if you don't mind?
Okay, let me look at the poem. Yeah, okay. The first, we have a contrast between Suragaya and Viragaya.
Yeah.
So Suragaya is a stronger form of raga. So it's actually, I believe, yeah. Okay, so this is raga is lust or passion, attachment. It seems to have a wider range than any of the English words that we use. So if we use the word lust, it's too narrow because the word lust generally signifies like sexual desire. Whereas raga could be attachment almost to anything, not only to sexual enjoyment, to possessions, to personal relations, even attachment to delightful, uplifting experiences in meditation. So we have like rupa kama raga, sensual lust, then rupa raga would be attachment to the experiences of the rupa jhanas, and arupa raga, attachment to the non-material or formless meditative attainments. And then viragaya, of course, is the ending of raga, the elimination of raga, this passion. And sometimes viraga is used as a synonym for nibbana, and sometimes it's used to signify, I would say, part of the path leading to nibbana. So it's the practice of removing raga. Okay, so that would be the first. Maybe some others would like to contribute for the other two.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to? Venerable Pesala, would you like to share some thoughts? Your thoughts about this? You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me, Bhante?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. First of all, I would like to pay my vandana to all the senior monks, including Bikkhu Bodhi. Actually, it's a great opportunity for me to see even him. So my worshipping goes to every monk. And I would like to contribute to this discussion with few words. By seeing Bhante, this kind of sutta, I remember the incident of the Titanic. When the Titanic ship was built and people think it can never be destroyed. But unfortunately, due to an iceberg, it was destroyed. So why it was happened in the beginning? The drivers of the ship or the captain, they saw the iceberg and they saw only the upper part. they didn't see the underground part. So that's why they had to, impact with the iceberg, and they eventually they had to destroy they have to face the destroyment of the ship. So I think similar kind of thing happened to the Buddhist monks also, Buddhist followers, because we are in a journey like the ship that is called Sansara Vatta. So to get rid of this Sansara Vatta, we have to use the Dhamma. So Dhamma is like the Sutta is like the iceberg. You could see only the upper part, the little bit you can see, but the most deep thing you have to, by putting much effort, much energy, much concentration, much care, you have to take back the meanings of that. The similar thing that has happened right now, Venerable Bodhi Thero, he has explained the meaning of the Saragaya. In English, it is said the lust, but it cannot give us the true meaning of the Saragaya. So likewise, we have to, find the true meaning. The second part is Sangyogaya, Samvattati, no Visangogaya. Sangyogaya means like when we hear Dhamma, or when we see a part of Dhamma, when we see a monk or follower who is practicing Dhamma, he's always, like to mingle or the, grouping with the people. If one likes to, so then we can be sure that this practice, so this Dhamma will not, lead us to the Dhamma. So that is the second one. And Achaya and Apachaya. Achaya means it is said accumulation and disposal. It is true. Like when we, as monks, we should have to, release things from us, release things away from us, and we should be able to depend on the 4 basic prerequisites as Chivara, Pindapata, Senasana, and Giranpata. So these things enough for us to maintain our lives. So it gives us that we have to if we need the real freedom, we have to release things from us first, the materialistic thing away from us. Then only we will be able to release our kilesas from our mind. So likewise, I just explained 2 and 3, and hopefully the other monks will also explain the remaining 5 factors one day. So thank you for providing me the opportunity.
Thank you for giving the powerful simile metaphor, the Titanic ship. I think that's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I think these words achaya and apachaya are based upon the verb chinati or chinoti, which means to build up. And so achaya is the positive practice of building up, which means in the sense of building up the samsara, the round of existence, by undertaking various activities and projects which just extend one's existence in samsara, probably including both mundane wholesome, as well as unwholesome activities. So even accumulating merits with the idea of having a happy rebirth, and then maybe attaining Nibbana in the time of a future Buddha would be part of achaya, building up. Whereas apachaya would be apachinati, the verb which means dismantling or deconstructing. It's like you have a building and then you drop bombs on the building or take the building down brick by brick, timber by timber. It's just dismantling the round of samsara by removing the underlying roots of the round, the asavas.
Yeah. Venerable Tridal, what's in your mind?
Salutations to all of the Venerable, and salutations to Most Venerable Bikkhu Bodhi. An honor to be here in your presence, and I try to share as much of the world feeding hunger post as much as I could. All of us young monks look really up to you, and as soon as something is being shared, we try to get everyone involved in to effect the purpose of priority of charity. So thank you so much for all that you do. In regards to today's discussion, I wanted to contribute in regards to the fetters, as the fetters were mentioned, and again, like the previous Venerable Pesala said, is that the tip of the iceberg, and then you have the subcategories of all of this, which requires in-depth investigation. And when we look at the fetters, the number one, belief in a self; number two, doubt or uncertainty; number three, attachments to rights and rituals; number four, sensual desire; number five, ill will; number six, lust for material existence, lust for material rebirth; number seven, lust for immaterial existence, lust for rebirth in a formless realm; number eight, conceit; number nine, restlessness; and number 10, ignorant. Number nine, restlessness; and number 10, ignorance. Then when we look at the three fetters, we see that the belief in a self, doubt, and in attachments, upon deep reflections within one's practice of these fetters, we can see that there is a lot to do. For example, branching off and trying to target specific. Number five, Vyapado, which is ill will, trying to tackle effectively and skillfully ill will. One needs to really look at one's efficiency and effectiveness practice in metta meditation. And all of the venerables, all the time, we repeat over and over again repetitively for the lay people to look at that. Then if we were to choose number 10, ignorance, avijja, one has to really question the effectiveness and efficiency in studying the Four Noble Truths. What is it that we still don't know? What is it that we still have not seen with direct experience? And so it is something that I think today's discussion is to inspire the people, the lay people who are listening, is that it's no different than the idea and concept of cleaning a dish. And everyone has quite of a messy dish. The accumulation of one's karma and residuals and so on. And some of us have like a really big piece of steak that's really difficult to remove. One must really scrub each corner of one's dish slowly, thoroughly, effectively, if one wants to progress on the spiritual growth and development. And so I think it's very overwhelming for any lay people to look at the overall umbrella of the suttas. And I would encourage one to just target specific which one that you're dealing with now, whichever arises most frequently and most recently in one's life, and to use all of the methods that the Buddha have left us with the assistance of a good, qualifying, authentic, experienced monk to help you do that. And that's how we scrub our dishes, and slowly, hopefully by the end of your life you've gotten most of this dust out of your eyes, and it's more confident to proceed on forward with the cultivation of the heart and the threefold training.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much, Trudeau, for sharing your thoughts regarding the fetter and unfettered. Venerable Bhante Kamalasiri from Minnesota. But I was actually going to ask you, because you were remaining very quiet, and I know you also have good understanding of this, and you also have a very
thank you for that. But Bikkhu Bodhi is here, therefore most of us, mostly everybody like to listen to him. So actually,
We want to listen to you also.
But I want to ask something, get an opinion from you. Even though this sutta says Dhamma in brief, I can see it is little bit expand of Yoniso Manasikara, proper consideration. What do you think about that? It is look like a little bit expand of Yoniso Manasikara, how to understand the Kusala and Nakusala.
Bhante Bodhi, he's asking a question from you.
Actually, that is not a question, it's opinion.
Yeah, opinion.
From that perspective, you could say, yeah, that it's, you use Yoniso Manasikara to distinguish these two. In each case, in the 8 pairs, you distinguish what is the unwholesome and what is the wholesome. What is the thing that leads, that is not the Dharma and Vinaya, not the Buddha's teaching, and what is the Dhamma, Vinaya, and the Buddha's teaching. So even though Yoniso Manasikara is not one of the 8 factors, but it's what one uses in order to distinguish each of the opposite, to distinguish between the opposing qualities.
Yes. But we need Yoniso Manasikara to understand this thing. What is the wholesome, what is the unwholesome?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante. That is the thing I want to get right here.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kamalasri. Is there anyone else who would like to share your thoughts, Venerable monks? If not, I would like to take some questions from the audience. Venerable Shanta Sobana.
Yeah, I want to add something. When we go to schools and talk to children, sometimes they also ask the same thing. Bhante, can you tell this thing brief? Because sometimes when it comes to our life, we want to say things and we try to say things and we take too much time. And because of that, what happens sometimes the listener not going to get the right message. So, and today when we come to like TikTok and YouTube and all the social medias, they become so successful because of this short message. And it is very important for as monks for us, and at the same time for all the listeners, whoever try to interrogate with the other people sometimes and try to express the ideas, because when we become clear within ourselves, and it will help to explain it in brief. So that is one of the important thing in day-to-day life when we practice, because most of time, especially with these young children, they have sometimes they don't have that much ability to stay longer with something, and they slowly losing that ability. So when it come to in brief, and if we can explain something, it become kind of like build up a very good, very strong bridge in between the teacher and the student, and at the same time with the listener and the preacher in that way also. So this is a very interesting question, because she asked, can you explain in brief?
One thing I think we have to remember, like if a little child, please explain the Dhamma to me in brief, this is not the sutta that you quote. We have to remember, already when she was a laywoman, Gautami was a stream enterer. She was already a Sotapanna. So she already understood, in a sense, the essence of the Dhamma. And now her faculties are probably right, very mature. And so the Buddha gives her these instructions, and then she goes off and practices. And then on the basis of these instructions, she attains arhatship.
That's a very interesting. Yeah, of course, Venerable Prajapati Gautami was in the kindergarten. She was not in the kindergarten or high school. she even maybe finished undergraduate studies. Now she was in a graduate school.
You're very all but dissertation point.
Yeah. And I mean, even that's why when of course these terms, the 8 terms we are using here, we find learning from the sutta. Those who have no understanding about the Dhamma, they may be kind of confused. What are these terms? So it requires some explanations. Where about Tridao?
Thank you for. I just wanted to have Bikkhu Bodhi's feedback on what I said because we're aiming for simplicity here, and this is not an easy suttas for most to again to invest. They don't know how to investigate, and they don't know where to start and which one to target specifically to deepen one's practice. And I just wanted Bikkhu Bodhi, your most venerable sir, if you could give me some feedback based on what I said earlier about the fetters, because I chose it because it was best easy to understand for most of us and for the lay people.
I think as far as it goes, it's okay, except that what I would say is that the Buddha's teaching is always sort of graded according to the capacities, needs, inclinations, the temperaments of the people who are being instructed. So generally, the Buddha will not begin a teaching by urging people to start immediately by working to eradicate the fetters, but he'll go with a more graduated sort of step-by-step training, emphasizing building up the basic virtues as a foundation. And what I find a bit interesting, I just scrolled a little bit down in the Anguttara Nikaya, and the sutta that comes immediately after this, now I have to find it again. It's getting... Okay, so this number 53, Book of Eights, number 53, is given to Gautami, who is now a bhikkhuni, and she asked for a teaching in brief so that she could go off as well, ardent, heedful, ardent, and resolute. But the next sutta, we have a layman, a layperson come to the Buddha and say, we are laymen enjoying sensual pleasures, living at home in a house full of children. Let the Blessed One teach us the Dhamma in a way that will lead to our welfare and happiness in this life and in future lives. And then the Buddha will explain 4 things that lead to welfare in this life. And those are 4 like practical things concerned with the household. Actually, but there's already a spiritual push to them, especially with good friendship. So he emphasizes the need to establish good friendship, to associate with friends who are accomplished in faith, sila, generosity, and wisdom. And then the 4 things that he emphasizes that lead to well-being and happiness in the future are achieving faith, virtuous behavior, generosity, and wisdom. So I would say that is the kind of teaching that's appropriate for the layperson, or even, I would say, also for monastics who are still in the formative stage of their training. But what's interesting here is that when we come to the accomplishment in wisdom, the Buddha says that the layperson possesses the wisdom that discerns arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. So this already is implying that the layperson should possess, or at least should be trying to acquire, the wisdom of insight that will lead to liberation. But one has to build up towards that with acquiring faith, sila, through observing of the precepts, and generosity. And those form the good qualities of character on the basis of which the attempt to develop wisdom can become effective.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I rejoice in your answer. And my design of question was to to see if, you know, we, us young emerging teachers, are teaching the right thing. And I haven't gone through the feathers with, you know, my own group that I'm leading. That's because they're still struggling with the basic, you know, Four Noble Truths and meditating on the Four Noble Truths over and over again. And yet I think that was one of the most challenging thing any teacher has to encounter, was to meet the student where they're at, and, you know, asking them to come as they are. But thank you for your explanation.
Yeah, I think it's good to, in giving like classes or talks, to speak about the 10 fetters, so that people know what, even if they're relative beginners, they know what are the particular obstacles that we eventually have to overcome to gain liberation. But we can't expect to begin by urging you have to make a determined effort to overcome the 10 fetters.
Yeah. This is for audience. Venerable Bodhi was referring to the sutta, and the same section is called the Diga Jhana Sutta. So Venerable Pesala, unmute yourself and you have to share more thoughts.
Bante, I would like to, can you hear me, Bante?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I would like to add some more things, like this sutra, especially as most venerable Bikkhu Bodhi Swamin Wahanse added, it is Buddha preached to the venerable Gautami Third. So as followers, we should keep this mind. We should keep this in mind, because there are lots of sutras. Some sutras are for the, you know, people who haven't got through the Dhamma, and some sutras are for the Arya. So we have to differentiate these sutras. So it is like to a little give a advanced class level lesson, he cannot understand. So similarly, this is for the already this theory already Sotapanna. So this is for her. So we have to understand that. So even as for a Sotapanna, he cannot get, suddenly he cannot get the Samadhi. So Buddhas, after the Sotapanna, we should focus on the Sila. Then only we can begin the Samadhi and the Panya. Most people think that the Samadhi will begin, you know, if we can stay for about 5-6 hours in the same posture, meditative posture, they think that they can have the Samadhi. But in Buddhism, it is not like that. So Samadhi happening because of Sila. That is why it is said Sila and then Samadhi and Panya. So these 8 basic things in this Sanghita Gautamivada Sutta, the characteristics, 8 basic things in this Sanghita Gautamivada Sutta, the characteristics of the Sila. So one having these qualities, you know, that means he's having the Sila. That Sila or the morality will eventually leads him to the Samadhi. And that Samadhi will lead to Panya. So that's what I want to add, Bante.
Yeah, thank you. And also, Bante Bodhi, even to, let's say, to remove all these 8 and negativities or emotions, let's say passion, fetters, accumulation, having more, lack of contentment, and the crowding ourselves, laziness, burdensome. To remove all these negativities of the mind, does it require to cultivate or develop panya? Can we remove this without panya? Or do we need to have all the 3? There's Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, all 3. But you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
I say it depends on what you mean by Panya, because Panya has a very wide range. Yeah. So I would say certainly you need a basic wisdom, I'd say, to see the need to develop, say, to reduce one's desires. even to start with, I'll start with number 4, to reduce desires, to cultivate contentment, to be fond of solitude rather than always to have to be socializing with other people. So that requires some kind of panya, but it's not yet, I would say that these factors don't require the panya in the higher sense of the wisdom of insight, not to speak of the wisdom of the world transcending paths and fruits. So I say that those qualities like fewness of desires, contentment, being fond of solitude, are aspects of sila, though not in the narrow sense of observing precepts, but more building up traits of character, sort of directing the mind in the right way, and laying a foundation for panya. And even the arousing of energy also is, and being easy to support, those are sort of also factors that contribute towards laying the foundation for wisdom. And what's a little bit puzzling in this sequence is that one doesn't see an explicit mention of Mahapurisa Vitaka Sutta, the 8 thoughts of the great man. Their explicit mention is made of panya, of wisdom, and their wisdom comes next to last. It's the 7th of the 8 thoughts. So there you have fewness of desires, contentment, fondness of solitude, energy, then mindfulness.
Yeah, Venerable Pesala, do you want to add some more thoughts? You raised your hand or?
No, Bhante, I haven't read. Okay, I would like to add some more. I would like. I feel like this is like Kalama Sutta.
Yeah.
Kalama Sutta also, teaches us to verify the Dhamma, and this Sutta also the same. As you previously said, this doesn't mean that we should already possess these. I mean, this quality. Like suppose sometime there may be a monk do lots of things. He may have contributed to lots of social services and things, but help others too. Even Buddha has appreciated that. But why we have also asked, and we have ourselves, and then we have but our mind should always think that how I end up these things and how I go to the secluded place and do meditation. Our mind should be there. That's what it means here. That even while doing lots of things and lot of contributions, our mind has to be have this quality. Try to provide this quality as far as when the time permissible. We have to go to a secluded place like in the Vasana season at least. So we have to practice in at least for a while. So that's what Bhante I want to.
Yeah, no, thank you. And of course, I think when people are young, let's say, we always like to socialize with a lot of people. We like to have, we like to party, we like to go to movies, we would like to travel, we would like to have a lot of friends. Even look at the social media. Let's say people are working so hard, to increase their likes, their fans, and when they have so many people, and at the end they try to hide from them. And all people, they like to stop partying. They don't like to socialize. They don't want to go to any events. They want to have their seclusion, just enjoy living alone. So I'm just wondering whether these things come along with the time, with the experience of the life, or like if we understand the essence of this Dhamma at a young age, would it be of immense benefit to us. I don't know, I'm just, asking a question. Anyone can. Bhante Bodhi is laughing.
Well, you were a Samanera in your teens.
Yes, Bhante,
Some of us didn't get ordained till we were in our late 20s.
Yeah. Venerable Tito, what are your thoughts?
I had someone told me, Venerable, forget generation millennial, which is my generation, and someone told me forget generation Z's, of which I'm trying so desperately hard to influence and inspire on TikTok with with the million followers there, and they focus on a lot of parenting. So one of my researches, the effects of parenting and parenting styles, and there's a lot of books that's coming out teaching parents on how to tame their angry children and children who are not listening. And pretty much I've glanced over some of these books, on the shelves, and it basically helps parents look for deep down inside, the cultivation of their hearts and how caring they are, and to move that caring quality forward, because children are just like recording machines. They're watching their parents, how their parents are manifesting their behaviors and anger, tone of voice, nature, style, dispositions. And so of course, Buddhism is going to be the one way of life that will unite the world. The question is, for the world, when are they going to adopt this philosophy at a very high rate of speed? When are they going to open their eyes and realize that we are the most comprehensive and educational system, effective and comprehensive educational system the world has ever seen? And absolutely, I have unshakable faith and confidence that when the Dhamma is being practiced by the family unit, starting with the parents, the children will come home. I mean, children coming home watching their parents sitting in the middle of the living room meditating, they're going to look to the right and be like, Mom? they wouldn't have a choice but to assimilate. And they're so inspired by the peace and energy that's in the room that they will practice the same way. And, I can't wait to see that one day when it comes, where all of this mindfulness is being taught in grade school as young as they can sit still. Just like the Dalai Lama said, if every eighth grader practices meditation, we can change all within one generation.
Now we have among us Venerable Dhammadina. Now I'm just wondering about your thoughts. What would you have to say about this? I don't know whether you have read the sutta, or I know you have listened to the discussion. Do you have any thoughts to share with us regarding this sutta? If so, please unmute yourself and speak up. I know you give it as a laywoman, you renounced everything, you gave up everything, then you became novice nun, then recently you became fully ordained nun. So maybe you're looking for the Dhamma taught by the Buddha to Venerable Prajapati Gautami.
Thank you, Bhante, give me opportunity.
Yeah.
My whole life is what I do, I was enjoying and learning most of the time. So my lay life also like that. What I notice, if I observe 5 precepts, most of the thing I notice, I am breaking the precepts. And 10 precepts, also how many times I break the precepts. And that's what always I am noticing. Then that is very easy for me to get into the higher ordination. Yeah. So because I think that is the Dhamma. So then what I thought, so all we are things like we are really good and we observe Cyril and then we observe, we became a nun or monk, whatever, then we are like a very fortune people, but I'm thinking the opposite way, because what Lord Buddha's taught us, because of the ignorance, we have this everything happen. So then, if I think like I'm like okay, I'm like I'm a spiritual person, so then I don't see my underneath situation. So then what I always, so that's really helped me to get into this Dhamma path, to me to like be a good human being, not like then and after high ordination also, I'm trying to aware everything what I'm doing, counting how many things, how many times I'm like count, and at the night time, so then I said, okay, these are the things I have to correct. I go like that, but it's I go because forcefully. One of my teacher told me to do that like that. Like exactly, I take Bante, I mean Rahula. Do you remember Lord Buddha's son's life, the Rahula? Yeah, that's the part I really absorbed from him, and then I really want to.
Anyone else who would like to share your thoughts? Okay, Venerable Shanta Sobana, please.
Yeah, actually, what I want to mention here. So we are living in here 2000, end of 2022. So this all the suttas happened, 2,600 years ago. And as monks, it is not fair if we come here and we have a discussion and if we take, oh, this happened with the Buddha and Bodhi, and then it is not relevant to this or that like that way. So we have to somehow, out of these discussions, as monks, we have to get the best out of it and provide some message and information to the world. Otherwise, what the point that we have just a discussion and we just give our ideas and we go. It is not fair for any listener, because this is a 1 hour discussion and monks come here. And if we all give our own ideas and just leave, what will happen to the listeners? They're going to, get more question out of this. So that's why. So I always question myself, and when it comes to this kind of discussion, how we can apply this to our day-to-day life, because otherwise it's just going to become just our own thoughts and ideas, and we're going to live with live with our own fantasy world. So that is that's happened all the time. So, but out of this discussion, rather than saying, oh, this happened with the Gautami and the Buddha, and because of that, that it is, we can't get any kind of idea to our day-to-day life, then all the sutras happen with somebody else with the powers, and they had some different experience with the Buddha. Then how we can get the best out of the analyzing sutta and apply it to our day-to-day life. So that I think that when it comes to this kind of discussion, it is not fair if we don't give a very clear message to the audience out of the sutra. It's not fair for anybody. So that's why. So I would like to ask from our Venerable Bikkhu Bodhi, what is the brief message we can give to audience out of this sutra?
Actually, I think the sutta, even though I said that it was given to Mahapajapati Gautami when she was a stream enterer to sort of push her towards arhatship. But first of all, you could see for even us as monks, it sets up a kind of ideal towards which we should strive, even if we're far from perfect, and being able to actually embody that ideal. So, naturally, as ordinary people, we tend to have desires. So it tells us as monks, we should be try to reduce our desires and to be content with the simple way of life. Not to be, looking out at the world, people at the world who have a lot of wealth, enjoyments, pleasures, position, power, but to be content with, not only to be content, but even to treasure our life as monks, since it's a very rare, precious opportunities in samsara to get the opportunity to live a monastic life in the Buddha's asana, then often as monks we have to associate with people, to participate in public events, ceremonies, Dhamma discourses, and so on. And lay people want to come to see us, but we also always have to keep that inclination of the mind towards seclusion, towards solitude. Of course, we naturally tend to be lazy. So we have to fight hard against that tendency to laziness on people. I want this, I want that. But, to be, in a way, this is a variation on contentment, to be easy to support what people give us, we appreciate, and try to make the basic requisites last a long time, not to always be changing the robe to get new robes, to get new iPhones, whatever, but to try to use the gifts that we're given, to make good use of them and let them be long lasting. Okay, so even for monks in a position where we're not living forest life, but still these teachings give us some guidelines. But also I could say that they also have a message for the wider society. But also I could say that they also have a message according to the Buddha's teaching. So what all people are really seeking are happiness, inner peace, inner freedom. And yet we look out at the world and we see so much destruction, so much futile ambition, people striving to be wealthy, to be powerful, to be more powerful, and even destroying the very foundations of human civilization just to enhance their own power and position. And yet we could raise the question, does it really bring happiness or contentment? And the answer we could say is no. And so these simple principles laid down here show us steps that anybody should follow who is seeking true happiness, true inner contentment, true inner freedom, as well as a way to make one's life beneficial to others rather than harmful to others. So particularly with the first three, we have to aim to at least to reduce the passions, the lusts, the attachments, to reduce our bonds, our bondage, and instead of building up, reducing it. And then the way to do that is through the other factors. So if people in society see, even in positions of power, see that the way to true happiness and freedom lies in following these principles, then we have a chance of promoting the well-being and happiness of people in society and creating a healthier, more wholesome social system rather than one that's so destructive to individual human well-being as well as to collective well-being and to the natural environment.
And I also have two experiences. The first experience was when I was given the task of doing the new temple project for our temple. Currently, I invited some people to be on the fundraising committee. So I invited one of our Canadian students, and so he attended the meeting. And after going through all the tasks I have to run, and I said, but the raising funds is not because it's too much for you. As a monk, you should not get involved in this. These are the tasks of the lay people. But then I told him, if I don't get involved, it's not going to happen. And maybe he had some understanding of this, but then he said he can't be a member of this fundraising committee. But despite that, we formed the committee and we built the temple. As a result of that, now so many people, like thousands of people, are benefiting from this new temple here in Toronto. And the second thing is like recently, I decluttered my room. I had a lot of stuff on my table and room just in case when visiting monks when they ask for, let's say, for a towel or soap or toothpaste or brush and some other things. So I always keep some extra in my room, but it took a lot of space in my room. So I kept the room like that for some years. And then I didn't feel like even inviting anyone to come to my room. So just 2 weeks ago, I had enough with everything, and I closed my eyes and I just threw away everything, like and cleared my room and even got rid of a lot of books and put in the shelf in the basement. And after that, I don't feel like putting any more stuff in my room. I don't feel like bringing when I keep the door, and I tell other monks, if you want something, please take them away. I don't want to bring them inside. So feeling a kind of happy, like I have a clean room. I feel very happy about it. And then I was reflecting on this, the not for more desires, but for few desires, few wishes, And so I think if we can, like, this is a great criteria for all the monks and nuns, even the lay people who have undertaken the journey to freedom from suffering or realization nibbana. While we are doing everything in day-to-day life, at the same time, we have to be mindful. While we are doing everything in day-to-day life, at the same time, we have to be mindful for the fact that I have a journey. I have to do the practice for these purposes, for the dispassion, to remove the fetters, not to accumulate, to let go, to have only a few wishes, not to have many. And even sometimes I don't like, I used to travel and do a lot of speaking, and thanks to COVID, now I don't feel like traveling either. Because I enjoyed this new freedom. And laziness, of course, I think, as Bikkhu Bodhi said, we all are lazy. Sometimes laziness comes, and then I have to put extra effort to do more work. And then, of course, then if we have lots on our plate, it becomes full of burdens and it hinders our journey. And so I think, in my view, if we can be mindful of these 8 steps, like to let go of the negative side and to cultivate the positive side, then I think even as urban monks and nuns, although we have acknowledged we are not completely done with these things yet, but this is the work in progress. And so this is my final conclusion. And I'm very grateful to all of you. And thank you, Bhante Bodhi, for joining today's discussion. To have your presence is a blessing for us. And we greatly admire you. And you always motivate us, inspire us. And we are hoping to have more presence of you in coming weeks. And also by February, first week, it would be our 2-year the virtual biweekly Sutta discussion. We are hoping to have a Dhamma conference. I hope, Bhante Bodhi, you would be free. I will send you the details so that you can book the day and time for that. I'm hoping to invite all other prominent monks from other countries as well. And this is just giving you a hint. And I'm very pleased to get the news, Bhante Bodhi, you're planning to come to Toronto in June.
I didn't say a definite plan. I said maybe I'm free. Who knows?
And I'm I'm just making a wish. May that plan become true for us. So with this in mind, I would like to invite Venerable Saranapal Otero from Vancouver to recite the over the Bhattamukha verses for us.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Kanti paramang tapo titikka Nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha Nahi pabbajito parupagati Samano hoti parang vihupavado anupagato pati mukhe cha sangvaro mat sangvaro mattanyuta cha tasming pantanca sayogo etang buddhana sasanang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. You have chanted those verses so beautifully, as if we have gone back to the time of the Buddha. Thank you. Beautiful recitation. And I'm very grateful and thankful to all the venerable monks and nuns for joining today's bi-weekly discussion. And your insights, your knowledge are greatly appreciated by all of us. And thank you for always showing great interest in this discussion. And may you have all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha for always showing great interest in this discussion. And may you have all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha for your health and safety. And may Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard all of you, the venerable monks and nuns, and our lay people, with the divine blessings for your health and safety. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata. May all sentient beings be well, happy, and peaceful. Thank you. I'm hoping to see you all in 2 weeks' time. Good night from Canada.
Wow, that was amazing. Uh-oh. I guess my YouTube like froze. The screen is frozen. I hope it's still recording, but every time when Bikkhu Bodhi shows up, it's such an experience. We so much rejoice. All of the words that he has expounded for all of us to hear. So until the very next time, I invite you all. Right before this talk was a near-death experience investigation with a student here locally that reached out to me. For this talk was a near-death experience investigation with a student here locally that reached out to me this morning, and I wanted to invite all of you to listen to that. Very inspirational. So, oh my goodness, the whole time I never went live on the Facebook thing. So I guess I'll be sharing the YouTube. This is why it serves as a backup. So much for mindfulness. Oh, goodness.